The Tamron 50-400mm f4.5 to 6.3 Di3 VC VXD is Tamron's latest do-it-all lens for Nikon Z-mount. This is essentially the Z-mount version of the E-mount 50-400 that Tamron had released previously. It's about half the price of the Nikkor 100-400mm, so is it half as good? Well, there will be more on that later. With its massive zoom range of up to 8 times, your framing options are almost limitless. I comboed the Tamron 50-400 with the Z9, Z7 II, and Z6 II, and it was comfortable to use with all 3 of those cameras. Well, let's get into it then, starting off with image stabilization and autofocus. Though the vibration compensation is good, panning fast makes keeping the shot steady challenging at the tight end, but if your subject is slower moving, the results can be significantly improved. I've got to cut this lens a ton of slack though, as all of the planes, especially the f/22 Raptor, were further away than the distances this lens was really suited for. I think a 600mm, possibly even with a 1.4 or 2 times teleconverter, would have been a much more effective option in this case, and I didn't take the photos from an optimal location and as a result are all heavily cropped. Turns out, taking photos of something moving a couple hundred kilometers an hour and about a kilometer away is more challenging than you'd expect. Overall, I think the vibration compensation of the 50-400mm is pretty solid, but for faster moving subjects, a tripod or monopod could be helpful to reduce shake. And the autofocus overall is pretty solid. Autofocus is nice and snappy thanks to the VXD motors in the lens. The Z9's specific plane autofocus tracking could use some work though. It seems to work much better when the front of the plane is coming towards you. Other than that though, it works just as well as you can expect. And now moving on to the build quality of the lens. I think it was really comfortable to use for extended periods of time. The air show that I was at was about 3 hours long and I didn't use a neck strap, and I can say that I didn't get any feeling of fatigue from the 50-400 Z9 combo. The 50-400 felt well balanced on all the cameras I used with it, even when the barrel was extended to 400mm. It's not the lightest of lenses, coming in at 1,155 grams, which is roughly double Tamron's newly released 28-300mm for E-mount, but it is lighter than the Nikkor 100-400mm. It also has all the buttons you'd expect as well: a customizable function button, AF/MF switch, and a 3-step custom setting switch, which can be customized in Tamron software Tamron Lens Utility. I also like the rubber they used for the zoom ring. The grooves are nice and grippy. Overall, I don't really have any complaints about how this lens feels to use, maybe other than its size compared to other brand new Tamron lenses. Moving on to possibly the most important thing, image quality. Here you can see the lens at its widest and tightest focal lengths going through the major f-stops. I think the results are pretty acceptable for a lens that has this amount of range. In the middle of frame, as you'd expect, is where it's sharpest, and to the edges it softens just slightly. So now that we've compared the 50-400 to itself, let's see it against the Nikkor 100-400. First at 100mm. And then at 400mm. Overall, I don't think the results from this test are that dissimilar, though I'd probably give the edge to the Nikkor lens, especially at the 100mm range. It's just a bit sharper overall and produces a more contrasty image. The Nikkor does have some interesting features that the Tamron doesn't have though, like the extra customizable ring and FN buttons. So if things like that are make or break for you, the Nikkor 100-400mm may be the right choice for you. Either way, both of these lenses are extremely capable and worthy of being in your kit. Alright, so here are some closing thoughts on this lens. Though the results from this lens can be impressive, it's not a lens that I'd take with me every day. However, if your work focuses a lot more in the sports or wildlife worlds, this lens will certainly be a more compelling mainstay in your kit. So there you have it. That's the Tamron 50-400mm f4.5 to 6.3 Di3 VC VXD, the newest addition to their full-frame lens range for Nikon Z-mount. See all we have to offer from Tamron and Nikon at vistek.ca, and see you next time. Have a good one. Bye.